fi say respect all the hotty gal them. No bother come with no bad-mindedness. No, 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 remember.
Tomorrow is International Nurses Day, the May 12th, and of course it is a day that is set aside to recognize the work that nurses do throughout the world. Very important work that they do. We have seen that especially in recent times with the COVID-19 pandemic, but they do much more than that. And so I have in the studio with me on my panel some nurse educators. I have Dr. Rondalyn Bradshaw to my right, first to my right, and she is the Dean of the Division of Health Sciences at the Clarence Fitzroy Bryant College. Dr. Bradshaw, welcome.
Good afternoon, Mr. Williams, and thank you for having us here.
Right. Then I have Miss Cadian Henry, who is also, she's a lecturer in the Division of Health Sciences at the Clarence Fitzroy Bryant College, the CFBC. And then I have Miss Julie Blaze, who is lecturer at the very same Division of Health Sciences at CFBC. Welcome to all of you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Williams. Thanks for having us.
Right, so we are here, and as I began by saying, tomorrow is International Nurses Day. It is celebrated every year on May 12th to appreciate and to bring awareness to the occupation of nursing. And it is really International Nurses Day is on the day that Florence Nightingale was born. And she was a famed British nurse known as the founder of nursing. And so nurses play a great role, but today our focus is going to be on the education of nurses, or Nurse Educators Week, because behind great nurses are great educators. And so therefore I want to start the ball rolling and to begin with a history of nurses really in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, a history of nursing education. So I want to start with Dr. Bradshaw to give us the history.
Good afternoon, everyone listening on radio and also on the social media. Good afternoon. Now I'm going to be giving the history of nursing education in St. Kitts and Nevis and Anguilla. Most of the information that I would be using are referenced in a book written by Mrs. Maria L. Barker entitled The Pillars of Nursing, St. Kitts, Nevis and Anguilla, 1950 to 1980. Nursing education in St. Kitts and Nevis and Anguilla came into existence in the 1950s, and no males applied for nursing at that time. Females at that time were mostly 18 years and single and entered the program with a school leaving certificate at a 7th standard or college or preceptor level. In 1956, matron Lucille Louise Walwyn collaborated with Mrs. Mavis Harney Brown to develop a syllabus based on the English model. Later, the entry requirement was upgraded to O-levels or junior and senior Cambridge school certificates. The only high schools in those days, surprisingly for most persons listening, were private, whose graduates met the required standards at that time. In 1972, after universal access to secondary schools, the minimum requirements for entry into nursing was 3 O-levels in English, mathematics, and a science subject. Prior to 1961, nurses learned on the job resembling an apprenticeship model. The doctor's rounds provided opportunities for student nurses to learn, including answering questions from the doctors at the bedside. And I remember those days as a student nurse, and those were very scary days, especially when you see Dr. Sebastian and Mr. Fosbury. So if your response was incorrect, you had to submit a written paper with the answer and submit it to the doctor on his next round. And those days, you couldn't be delinquent. Nursing skills were taught by the senior nurses, a few lectures by matron, assistant matron, and doctors in the hospital. After 3 years of training, the students sat examinations and, if successful, were promoted to staff nurse. In 1968, the General Nursing Education Program was developed using the block system, whereby students would go to a classroom for 6 weeks, and in my time, we spent 3 months in the clinical setting under the direct supervision of the senior staff nurses and the ward sisters. And they also had a responsibility to provide feedback to the nursing tutors at that time. And this period for us as students was known as the Preliminary Training School, or commonly referred to as PTS. Students had to pass each exam in order to progress to the next program. But however, in those days, there was a limitation in human and financial resources at the hospital, School of Nursing. So the nursing tutors had to, what we would say now, think out of the box and realize how to achieve the objectives for their students to be well-rounded. I can remember the days when the pharmacists used to come and teach us. We also had Dr. Sebastian, Dr. Steve Claxton, the late Dr. Steve Claxton and the late Dr. Sebastian, Mr. Fosbury, the late Dr. Lofton Richardson, Mr. France and Mr. Romeo Paris, the pharmacist, Miss Faria, who was the nutritionist at that time, and Mr. Stanley Hector and Mr. Bobby Turner, who were microbiologists, and Mr. Lawrence also. He was the public health inspector. Those were our teachers as well. Collaboration between St. Kitts and Nevis Anguilla, Antigua and Montserrat resulted in planning and the execution of the final examinations in the Diploma in General Nursing. This method provided the level and standards of the nursing education program implemented in each of these islands. PAHO and WHO played a vital role in assisting St. Kitts and Nevis and Anguilla in strengthening nursing education. In 1968, the Gen of General Hospital School of Nursing was included in a second survey of schools of nursing in the Caribbean led by the late Dame Nita Barrow of Barbados, with the assistance of Sister Tutor Maria Barker. Dr. Una Reed of PAHO and WHO, and she was the nurse advisor in education, provided the technical assistance in curriculum development. The Advanced Nursing Education Unit, UE, through PAHO and WHO, provided nurses with fellowships for advanced nursing education and management certificate programs. Among those receiving scholarships between 1965 and 1980 in nursing education were Miss Maria Barker in 1968, Mrs. Helen Bart White in 1972, and Mrs. Maureen Byron Dickinson in 1976. In 1975, the RNB, or the Regional Nursing Body, recommended that nursing education should be placed under tertiary education in the community college of each island. In St. Kitts, the School of Nursing was placed under the Ministry of Education at CFBC in 1985. The General Nursing Program was replaced by the Associate Degree in Nursing. In 2014-2015, the UE CFBC franchise Bachelor of Science Nursing degree replaced the Associated Nursing degree program. I will stay there at this time so that I can give my other colleagues a chance to speak.
Yeah, I know, but I want you to, something that you said is that no males entered,
Yes.
at least at that time. Right. But still we have a problem with males entering. Well, this is a problem, but they're just not entering because they see the profession as one for women. It's for women, And what can be done to change that perception in the Federation that nursing is simply just not for women, that males can also be nurses? Because we would like to see it's a profession where people can enter. It provides employment, and of course, it's a service to people and so on. So,
Well, right now, I would say that that perception has been demystified because right now in our School of Nursing at CFBC, we have 5 male students.
okay, that is good. From 0 to 5. Well, we are basically moving up.
Yes.
But then I want to ask another question. I know you said a lot in terms of nursing and so on, but who is a nurse?
Okay, I will give a chance to one of my
Who is a
panel.
nurse?
Yes.
Any one of you, Kadian or Julie? Who is a nurse? Who would you say is a nurse?
A nurse, by definition, is a person who have completed the recommended training, has written an exam, has been qualified and registered with the nursing council, the local nursing council, and they can hold the title nurse. So not anybody can say that they're a nurse. You have to go for the recommended program, you have to graduate, you have to write a qualifying exam, and then you have to be licensed, and then you get the title nurse by the local nursing council.
Right, and so therefore, there we go back to education.
Yes.
The nurse has to be educated,
Yes.
go through some sort of a formal training,
yes.
or some sort of a training
Formal
to be
training.
qualified,
Yes.
and then as a has to license as a nurse. Now let us look at the personal history from nursing student to nurse educators.
Personal journey.
Yes, the personal journey. Mhm. So you'll take that one, Katie. Okay.
Sure. My name is Kadian Henry. I am a lecturer at the CFBC. I have been a nurse since 2010. I did my bachelor's degree, my Bachelor of Science degree in nursing at the Brownstown Community College School of Nursing, and that is located in Jamaica. At the time, the BSN, the BScN, the Bachelor of Science in Nursing degree was 3 years. So I started nursing school 2007, finished 2010. I then worked at the bedside at the Falmouth Hospital in Jamaica. I did bedside nursing for 5 years, almost 5 years. And then I proceeded to do my master's degree in public health. Between bedside nursing and doing my master's degree, I started lecturing, well, tutoring at the time in Spanish Town. And I also did hotel nursing. I did community nursing at a private facility. And then in 2017, I returned to the same nursing school I graduated from as a lecturer. And I did 2 years there when I was recruited by Dr. Rondalyn Bradshaw in 2019 at a conference in Jamaica. I came to St. Kitts 2020, and I've been here ever since.
Okay, so that is the personal journey from nursing student to nurse, yes, to nurse educator. Julie, can you tell us a little bit about your journey?
Sure. I'm Julie Blaise from the wonderful island of Dominica, nature island of the Caribbean, of the world, I should say. My nursing journey started after college. I completed sixth form college, then went to the nursing school at the age of 18. Completed a 2.5-year nursing program at a certificate level. Then I worked on the pediatric unit, neonatal unit, and also the emergency department. Then when my sister was also a nurse, so those who know me, I'm a twin. My sister is also a nurse. She worked in the community. When she went to pursue her midwifery program, I went to work in my community. So it was a pleasure to work in the Grand Bay community to serve my people. When she finished her program, I too went to pursue the midwifery program, which was at a certificate level at the time. I worked on a maternity unit for 2.5 years, and then I went to Trinidad to pursue the bachelor's degree in nursing education. That was a 2-year program. And from there, directly from Trinidad, I went to Jamaica to the Masters in Nursing Education, which was 1 year. Went back to Dominica, and like Kadian, went back to serve in the same school that I was trained. So I taught at the same school that I was trained at. And then, while I was there, I wanted something different. I wanted to have a new experience. I didn't want only a Dominican experience as a nurse educator. So a friend I met several times before at training, it was at a conference, Dr. Bradshaw, in St. Lucia, and then at a conference in Dominica, I met Dr. Bradshaw, and because I wanted to expand my experience, I remember meeting her. So I called her to find out if there were any opening, any nursing position in St. Kitts, and she said yes. I was all excited, was happy, and here I am, 4 years later. Well, my journey was supposed to be 1 year here, and 4 years later, I am still here and loving it.
Right. So, Dr. Bradshaw, share your journey as well. You're not going to get away.
My journey is kind of ancient.
Right, but that's okay.
Well, I was educated because I grew up in Tortola, so I was educated in Tortola. I returned in 1988 and applied at the nursing school and was accepted. When they started, I was actually late. And God bless the heart of Sister Maureen Dickinson. And I joined the school on September 26, 1988. It was quite a culture shock for me, of course. However, I settled quickly. I resided in the nurses' home, where right now the Health Sciences Division is housed. And I completed a combination of nurse training, first the general nursing program within the 3-year period, and I did the 1-year internship period where the nurses had to do that before they go up to do the post-midwifery program. Because of the number of students, sometimes the group was split in half. So I completed the midwifery program in 1993, and then in those days, the maternity unit, only the nurses or the students who their grades or their positions in the exam were first or second. And in that exam, I came second in the exam. And so at those times, those students would stay on the maternity unit as staff nurses. So I've worked on maternity unit from 1994. I later migrated in 1995. I went to Tortola, worked on the maternity unit there for 6 years and returned in 2000 and continued the maternity assignment at the JNF Hospital until 2006, where I went to Jamaica, the University of the West Indies Mona campus, to complete the Bachelor of Science in Nursing. Completed that degree with honors in 2008, and at that time I enrolled in the Master of Science in Nursing Education and completed that in 2009. I have taught, I joined the faculty in the Division of Health Sciences in 2009, and I was assigned the position of Dean in 2018, but before that I completed my doctoral degree at the Walden University in 2015. I still teach. I still teach in the BSN program and the midwifery program and in all the short courses that we offer in the division. So teaching is a part of me and I love it passionately.
Right, and so one understands that you can go right to the top in nursing, you know, from the bachelor's right up to the PhD. And I suppose you have different specialized areas as well that you can study in nursing. Yes. You can specialize in certain areas. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So you can be the matron if you aspire to be the matron. You can do nurse administration at master's, doctoral level. You can study intensive care nursing, nurse education, of course, nurse anesthesiologist, nurse forensics in nursing, pediatric, accident and emergency, nurses law. I have my very good friend in England, Yolanda Knight. She studied nursing law. And there are so many aspects within nursing right now. Right now we have a problem with chronic diseases. And you do have nurses who specialize in diabetes care, nurses who specialize right here in St. Kitts in nutrition. I know Mrs. Duncan in the Ministry of Health. And there are so many areas that we can carve our own career pathway in nursing. Well, we are not saying that nursing at the bedside is not good, but it is at the bedside that you decide that this is the area I want to branch off in. Yes.
And some people think that nursing is somewhat inferior to being a doctor, to being a medical doctor. I'm sure that this is, but some people just don't want to be doctors. They want to be involved in healthcare, but healthcare involves several areas. You can be nurses and you can work in other areas in healthcare. You don't necessarily want to be a medical doctor. And you can climb right to the top in terms of Cadian, yes.
A principle or a concept I was taught was that doctors focus on medicine, whereas nurses look at the human factor to the client that is ill. So it is not that you are less than, you are a practitioner in your own right. You have completed your bachelor's degree, and nursing, as Dr. Bradshaw mentioned yesterday, is a specialist area. It is not, it's separate from medicine. Though we work together and we collaborate, nursing is a multidisciplinary profession. We utilize the nursing process to obtain our diagnosis in order to treat our clients. Some of our interventions involve collaborative measures where we have to interact or we have to work with the doctors or members of other fields, and some are independent. So nursing is not less than, it is other.
It is complementary.
It is complementary, yes.
Mm-hmm. So I am sure that the experience in the classroom is somewhat different to the experience in the hospital. What are some of those differences?
When you're in the hospital, you focus on the client. You come to work, you assign a group of clients, you provide care for them, and you go home. You hand them over to another nurse or another group of nurses, another team. You go home, you get to rest and sleep, and then you can come back again. In education, there's very little sleep sometimes. It's always ongoing. So you go to the classroom, you attend lectures, but you have to go home, you have to do your own reading. You also have to do assignments. You have group work. So you're always learning, you're always on the go. So that's one of the main differences.
Right. And what is the curriculum like for nurses? What are some of the things that are in the curriculum for nurses? The training for nurses, what are some of the areas that are key?
So in order for the student to matriculate for the BSN program at Clarence Fitzroy Bryan College, they must obtain passes from the CXC, Caribbean Examination Council, or the GCE, the General Certificate Examination, and they must have 5 passes, 5 subjects, mandatory English language, mathematics, either human or social biology or straight biology, and then 3 other of the approved subjects, whether it be agricultural science, geography, Caribbean history, a modern language, it could be French, it could be Spanish, social studies, religious education, food and nutrition, home economic management, principle of accounts, principle of business, English literature, business studies, information technology, chemistry, physics, psychology, or geography. And I believe that in the next 5 years, chemistry and physics will be mandatory. And this is dictated by the Nursing Council of Jamaica, who has an overarching oversight of the University of the West Indies School of Nursing, which is the program that we offer at the Clarence Fitzroy Bryan College. So that is the matriculation level. When the student enters in first year, they do foundation courses, psychology, critical reading and writing, sociology, anatomy and physiology, nutrition, epidemiology, my favorite, biochemistry, and then they go on to do the nursing courses, or the NURS as they are termed, in second year of nursing school.
Right, and there is also, apart from the theory, there's also a practical component.
Yes.
When they get to the second year,
Yes.
they will start, for instance, in the first semester, they will start the course health assessment. They get the theory for that. And so after that, now they go into the clinical simulation lab, the state-of-the-art lab that we have, where they will be started on the beginning skills of assessing the patients from head to toe. All right, and then I think it is in the third semester, they would start the parent-child course. That is theoretical, of course, the foundation. And then they, of course, will go into the lab, get the practice, like, for instance, bathing the baby, measuring the baby, the length, the weight, doing the physical examination of the antenatal patient, postnatal patient, etc. And then they go through the checklist. Once they have mastered the checklist, then they graduate to the hospital, where they will now do the clinical assignments. Of course, they have assignments that they hand in, presentations, they have final practical examination at the bedside. And of course, they're supervised by the nurses on the unit, as well as in partnership with the lecturers from our division.
Do all nurses have to go to CFBC for their training?
Well, as it is by law in St. Kitts, once they want to go into the nursing profession, then as long as they live here, then they have to enter. But you have some nurses, right now we have nurses from Africa, we have nurses from Jamaica, St. Lucia, we had one from Grenada, we had one from St. Vincent. And of course, once they have finished their training and they are successful at the regional examination for nurse registration and they have gotten their licensure, then they are free to practice anywhere in the world. We don't want people to think that we only train our nurses to stay here. We would want them to go out and practice, synthesize what they have been taught in a new area. Because when I went to Tortola, it was very good for me because I was able to see the other side of nursing as well. And so I was proud of that. So we would want to encourage them, of course, to give back to the country where they were trained, but also they must test their knowledge and their skills in a new setting so that they can compare. Did I really benefit from this program? You know, so.
Could you speak a little bit to midwifery? You know you have.
Coordinator.
Yes.
She's the coordinator.
Let me just highlight that nursing is an art and a science. So we have the knowledge, we get a lecture, but we must apply it. So that's the art. So the science is the education, the information that we get. So you don't want a nurse who has all the knowledge and cannot actually apply it. So for midwifery, we have the midwifery program, which in St. Kitts, midwifery is mandatory for all registered nurses, but in other Caribbean countries, it's optional. Okay, so midwifery is a 15-month program. The students come to the same thing, they come to the classroom. They have a period of theory, and then go to the clinical area, maternity unit, the communities, the different community health centers around the island. They get exposed to caring for the pregnant woman and her family. So we don't focus on the woman. Midwifery is about the woman and her family. The pregnant woman, the baby, the postnatal woman, and they also go to the hospital to care for these people and also to do deliveries, which is an important aspect of completing the midwifery program.
Okay. Right. How are nurses or nurse educators, local nurse educators being recognized for their significant work and contribution in the Federation.
That is the whole reason why we are here today. Because as you know, Nurses Week began on Friday the 6th. And of course, tomorrow is Nurses Day. Right? It is celebrated on May 12th on the birthday of the modern Florence Nightingale. So it's under the theme, A Voice to Lead, Invest in Nursing and Respect the Rights to Secure Global Health. However, additionally, this year, the National League for Nursing has declared 2022 the Year of Nurse Educator under the theme, Behind Great Nurses are Great Educators, in celebration of the unique contributions of nurse educators to public health and highlighting careers in nursing education. And this is why we are here today to share with the general public and those in the diaspora the significant achievements and contributions made by the nurse educators, past and present, in St. Kitts and Nevis. Now, I would just want to highlight some of those persons, those trailblazers, as we would say, in nurse education. We have Mrs. Maureen Byron Dickinson. She completed her state-registered nurse, state-registered certified midwifery, her bachelor's in science, certified advanced nurse educator, and she was the principal nursing tutor from 1976 and 1990. And during her tenure, she developed and implemented the new general nursing curriculum based on the regional standards. She introduced the nursing assistant program to meet the growing needs of the healthcare services in St. Kitts and Nevis. She was chair of the St. Christopher and Nevis Nurses and Midwives Council. Then we had, after her, the principal nursing tutor was Mrs. Evelyn Smitten. I know once people hear, former nurses hear that name, they will stand at attention, yes? She completed her BSN, her state-registered certified midwife, and her master's in education. All her nursing education training were done in England. She was the principal nursing tutor between 1990 and 1997, 98, thereabouts, and her concentration was in the midwifery program. Mrs. Sheridan Morris, she was the youngest nursing tutor at that time. She had completed her bachelor's degree and her master's in nursing education. And she was a nursing tutor between 1988 and 1997. The late Mrs. Maureen Connor Williams, a registered nurse, certified midwife, public health nurse, completed her bachelor's in nursing, and she was also a tutor at the then JNF General Hospital School of Nursing from 1989. The late Mrs. Connor Williams was head of the Health Sciences Division in 1998 to 2002. During her tenure, she revised the general nursing and midwifery curricula and the development of a nursing recruitment manual. She was treasurer of the St. Christopher Nevis Nurses and Midwives Council. Mrs. Shirley Kelly, she completed her RNCRM and she was head of the Health Sciences Division from 2002 to 2018. During her tenure, she was very instrumental in the health sciences area of liaison with the government at that time in 2014 to successfully procure the state-of-the-art clinical simulation laboratory. She was also instrumental in replacing the associate degree nursing to the UE-CFBC franchise BSN in 2014-2015. So looking at this list, you can see that we have had very good, excellent nurse educators who were the trailblazers at that time. And we want to give them their kudos, right? And also remember good memories of the late Mrs. Maureen Connor Williams. I had the personal experience of being a student under each of these persons that I have listed, even down to Mrs. Shirley Kelly when I did my pupil midwifery program.
Now you have different levels. Like nursing is a profession that goes by rank, isn't it? So could you tell me a little bit about the rank, the ranking system of the nursing profession?
Okay, well, let me just highlight that there is one change, because remember that you have male nurses now. And in the former years, we referred to the nurse managers, which as sisters. So we will say, you know, Sister Dickinson. But because we have the male nurses now, we are saying nurse managers, assistant nurse managers, and directors of nursing services. All right, now the different ranks in the hospital setting, when people go up there, I guess they are dazzled by the different colors of belts and also the uniforms. Now, I will start with the student nurses. They wear the pinstripe blue and white uniform with the matching belt. Once they have completed and were successful in the regional examination for nurse registration and have received their license for practice, then they would be awarded a red belt. Now, after that, the student would, of course, have to garner some clinical experience before moving to the another level, which is the post-basic midwifery program. Once the student has been successful in entering the program, the belt changes to white. When the student completes the post-basic midwifery program and is being certified, according to the Ministry of Health, she would be awarded the staff nurse position, where now you would see her in her full white with a red belt. The shoe color will change from black to white. Once the nurse has had enough experiences, and of course, I would want to believe graduate studies, then the nurse will be promoted to nurse manager, assistant nurse manager, and they would wear a blue belt. The nurse manager who has oversight of the unit, say medical ward, surgical ward, will wear a brown belt. The director of nursing, director of institutional nursing services, where we would call a long time ago the matron, she does not wear a belt. The assistant director of institutional nursing services does not wear a belt either. So, and then the nursing assistant, their uniform is the same blue and white pinstripe, but they wear a dark blue color and the dark blue cuff on their sleeve. Right? So that is the difference. I know when I was in Tortola, we had an incident there whereby patients there, they are more, you know, and they don't want you to have anything to do with them. They look down at your shoe. And they say, okay, you're not wearing black. You can look after me, right? Right. So, yes, persons now, even here in St. Kitts, persons are getting a bit finicky with the different levels of nurses because they apply that to maybe the quality of care that they would get. But I can assure everyone out there that our nurses are trained well. They're trained well. They're given the appropriate education based on the regional standards. That is what we follow. And of course, our nurses go through the rigor of preparation for the regional examination of nurse registration. And you would have heard years now that that examination is quite difficult. It has to be difficult at that level. It has to be set at a level because after the nurse has been prepared and she goes through the exam, he or she goes through the examination, has been successful, that is when they're given a license to practice. And it is only then that you can say they are a registered nurse.
The colors for nurses who are employed in the institution set at the hospital, but you have nurses who perform primary health care, the community health nurses who wear beige, and they are also experts and educators in their own right. They have to be trained in registered nursing. They are midwives, plus they do public health, community health nursing. So they are skilled and they wear beige.
One thing I would like to pick up there is that before the nurse can actually go and specialize, she must do the foundation, the registered nurse education to qualify her to move up to the specialized levels. So community health is another specialized level. Yes.
So to move up the ranks, you have to complete the
Training,
the
yes,
training
the
and
novice training,
Right.
what we call the entry level training.
Okay.
Because universally now, nurses are not accepted in America, and even as close as St. Martin, without having the bachelor's degree, which is the entry requirement that the RMB has set for us to have covered by 2011. Right? Yes.
Now, what could ever prepare nurses, I mean, student nurses, for what they will meet in the hospital? I mean, I think it is very hard work. Nurses work very long hours. They're stressed out. They're burnt out. And they don't even get the recognition, I think, that they deserve. As I heard you speak about the theme for this year, a voice to lead, invest in nurses, and respect rights to secure global health. Sometimes enough investment is not put in nurses, and nurses sometimes are disrespected. Can think of the kind of treatment sometimes they receive from patients. Yeah. So I don't know if you want to speak to that.
Well, the Clarence Fitzgerald Barron College has a beautiful simulation lab. I believe it is the best rated even over the University of the West Indies. So we have simulation exercises where we try our best to prepare students. We as educators, we provide scenarios where the students can, they can provide feedback as to how they would best react to a situation. And in addition to the simulation, they have clinical courses that see them go into the JNF, and they would have first-hand experiences of this before they leave nursing school. We have debriefing exercises by way of post-clinical conference, preclinical conference to best prepare the student to obtain the objectives that they would have set out when they embark in the clinical area.
Right. Maybe I should ask the question also a different way. What are some of the factors to consider? For example, should I be a nurse? What are some of the factors to consider? Because I have had experience, and I'll say this, of dealing with some nurses. I mean, you know, the experience has not been a good one. The way that they speak to you, the way that they, it's a profession. It is a profession. So what are some of the factors that one should consider if they're considering being a nurse? Should I be a nurse? What are some of the qualities, that a nurse should really have? Because it's a caring profession. It's a, so what are they? I mean, it's not that I'm just doing it for the pay that I get, but
I think to be in the nursing profession, you have to want to be there. That's the first thing. I want to be a nurse, and this is what I want to do. Why do you want to be a nurse? I want to contribute to my community. I want to contribute to my family. I don't think no amount of money can satisfy a nurse or pay a nurse, or because we do so much every day. So you have to have the willingness, you have to have the determination, you have to be patient, you have to be kind, you have to be a people person, you have to be very tolerant, because the community, the people out there, they are ruthless sometimes. Is that they don't consider, they think you're a nurse and you're supposed to do everything for them. So they don't realize, so this nurse has to be flexible. Because one client will be happy, she'll be excited, joyful, and then this next client will be sad. You have to be able to work with different clients based on their situation and their condition. We have to also take personal care of ourselves. Self-care is an important thing, and I always tell my students, you have to take care of yourself. If you're not happy, you cannot bring that joy to the client. Okay? Sometimes we don't know how to separate work from personal life. Because if something's happening to me at home, the husband did not caress me or give me the kiss before he leaves. So when I go up there, I'm grumpy. And if I'm not mindful of that, I'm going to pass that on. I'm going to pass that on to the client. So I'm going to be grumpy. They ask me a question. I don't want to answer because I'm thinking of something happened to me what happened at home. So persons have to understand that. And as I said, fun, have fun. Studying is fun, going to school is fun, working is fun. You have to enjoy being at work or coming to work or looking forward to being at work. If you don't do that, when you go to work, it's like, why am I there? And sometimes you expect satisfaction from a client, you expect the client to be happy with what you provide. And most times when you go out of your way to assist them, that's when you feel that they are not thankful for what you're doing. And you have to accept that not everybody will appreciate what you do. But you still have to go ahead because there are persons who really appreciate, who thank you, who are excited to see you, who are happy to see you, and then you have to have the support of your family and your colleague. So if you're not a people person, if you're not a team player, it's going to be very hard for you to be a nurse.
And then also if you look at the nurse population that we have now, we have a diverse population. And so it's a culture. Yes. It's a meeting of the cultures. And so we always teach our students not to discriminate. Of course, you're going to meet patients who are difficult. I have met them. And oftentimes you have to stop and just listen and take it. We were taught not to respond, but these days, because of COVID-19 too, it has also elevated persons' temperament. You don't know what persons are coming to hospital with. They may be coming with a headache, but it is not really a headache. It is something that is bothering them and they're seeking assistance. And so as nurses, we have done the courses on psychology. We have done sociology. We have done also mental health. And so sometimes, of course, if we are burnt out, if we are overworked, I mean, you're tipping the scale now. But I would want to say to us as nurses that we need to take time for ourselves. Also in institutions, I would want to recommend that there's a psychologist on site. Because if you look at the hospitals in America, and even in Trinidad, I was listening to the news when they had COVID-19, they offered nurses psychological attention. They would come in and they would have sessions with them. And after the nurses leave, they were feeling much better. And also to the public, sometimes we go up there with premeditated motives based on the treatment that a friend or family may have had. And you don't know what happened there, and so it is not right for us to judge every situation as if the nurses are always in the wrong. Mark you, I am not saying that sometimes they're not wrong. However, we have to look at it in a different lens, because even nurses are human beings. We too went through COVID-19. We too had to start to think out of the box. And so if persons would just sit back and think about each other, you know, when you go to the hospital, remember the nurses are on their feet all the time. I've been there, I know. And oftentimes we promise to come back to you. But by the time I turn the curtain, another patient is calling. And by the time I turn around, another one is calling. You know, so it's difficult. We are not going to complain to you because we are not programmed that way. You know, but I would just like to see some psychological interventions may sort of improve on both sides.
So there are a lot of physical demands that you can have.
Yes.
And
one patient, you know, can take a nurse a whole shift.
Right.
One patient can take a nurse a whole shift, believe it or not. I've been there. So I understand.
Right, and then as you mentioned that you are on the front line.
Yes.
And so therefore you're exposed to illnesses viruses, bacteria,
Everything.
and and all of that sort of thing. So your job can be a rather risky one.
Yes. But
And you also have to deal with people of different temperaments,
Right.
as you basically said.
Yes.
So it is not just the temperament of the nurse,
Right.
but the diversity of patients,
Patients and the
their
diversity of the
temperaments,
nurses too.
and
The
nurses
culture,
that
the
the culture that you have
the culture.
to deal with
Yes.
doesn't make it any easier.
Right.
And so you have to know how to maneuver
Navigate
through
your
all
way.
of that, navigate your way, and so on.
Yes.
What you have to say about that, Kadian?
I agree that, well, nursing is, well, human beings are dynamic and we're multifaceted. So we have different aspects to ourselves. We have our physical self, we have our emotional self, our spiritual self, or social self. And the nurse is trained in providing holistic care. So it's more than seeing the client as being the diabetic with the toe, with the infected toe. This is a person who is the sole breadwinner for their family, who is not really lashing out at the nurse, but has to be now in a bed and he doesn't have earning potential. So he's frustrated. The nurse sees beyond all of this, and as Dr. Bradshaw said, you cannot take it personal. You cannot take it personal. You too have your issues, and you, being the person who is educated and trained in the human factor of an ill person, you should see beyond a difficult client. And I too support Dr. Bradshaw in her recommendation of a psychologist, or yes, a psychologist being available to nurses only. Not one that is there for clients, but one that is there for nurses to debrief. Because some of these, as you ask, how do you prepare the student nurse? You cannot. These things you see, some of, especially nurses working in A&E, some of these things you'll never see more than one time. And they are really traumatic, and the nurse should have a mental health services available to them for free.
Yes, and so therefore, because nurses, as I mentioned, sometimes they're not given the recognition that they deserve, and they need to be appreciated, because if people are not appreciated, they're not really motivated to work.
True.
And so therefore, what sort of a tips you think there can be for overcoming these nursing challenges? I think, Julie, that you started speaking in terms of self-care and all of that. Could you elaborate a little bit, perhaps, on some tips to overcome some of these challenges that nurses face?
One thing I want to let nurses recognize is that you're doing something, you're you're providing care for somebody. If they could do it, they would not come to you. So you have to recognize that you're providing a service. You must do it as if you were doing it to yourself or your family. So irrespective of who you have in front of you, as the good Bible said, you have to do unto others as you'd like them to do unto you. That's the main thing. Once you keep that in mind, you will provide the care that is required irrespective of the situation. We teach them what we call professionalism. So you have to recognize that you are the professional in that situation, irrespective of what's happening to the client. You have been taught, you have gone through the training, you know that the client is quarreling. It's not about you. You don't have to answer at the time. Sometimes you need to step back from a situation, reflect, compose yourself, and go back again. Okay? I know our reward is in heaven. Nurses, I think all nurses are going to heaven. Because I think God is the only one who can compensate us fully for what we do. We give up our time, our talent, our treasure. Nurses in the community will tell you that they have to give from their pocket to clients who do not have. But we have to take, as we said, we have to take care of ourselves. Me, I like to go to the beach. Love a little wine once in a while with cheese and grapes. Go hiking and sightseeing. You have to do that. Have strong family support and support of your friends. As I said, support of your colleague. Because if you're going for a stressful situation on the ward and you have your colleague with you providing that support for you, you can be able to manage it. And you can discuss, you can debrief, you can vent. For me, I'm privileged that I have a sister who's a nurse. I have a niece who is a nurse. So if something's happening, I can always talk to them about it because they understand the language that I'm speaking. Some of my friends cannot, so I cannot speak to them about it. But I know if something's happening, I can call Kadian and say, Kadian, this is what's happening. Come, let's go to the beach. We just need to relax yourself. Okay? Here. Morning.
No, I was thinking about something tangible. So
Yes.
I think the institution now has a responsibility to recognize the nurses. I don't think it would be difficult. I remember when I was in Jamaica, I was passing a unit one morning and I had to stop and look back and go back to the ward. And there was a picture of a nurse, you know, and the picture was like from the ceiling to the floor. And I was actually saying, hi, how are you? You know, and things like that. You see nurses, they're smiling. And sometimes you will see the picture in a frame. Sometimes I think when the electricity department, the old building, you used to see a plaque with those persons who were the employee of the month. I go to some supermarkets, I see it there. Perhaps we need to introduce tangible rewards for the nurse so they can actually see it, they can feel the love, not necessarily from the patient, but from the institution itself, you know? Yes, nurse of the year,
You're right.
nurse of the month,
Nurse of the month.
the nurse who is most punctual.
Or have a dinner for them.
They have a dinner for them, something. It doesn't have to be every day, but it can be a surprise. You're collecting data when nurses are absent, when they are late. Collect data on the good that they are doing, those that are actually going the extra mile. We know the shift finishes at 3, and there's some that will take their bag and disappear. There's some you will meet there till 6, because I have to finish this care for the patient before I hand it over. And I went through those days, you know, and so now is the time, because many persons are depressed, and COVID dumped a lot of, you know, on
Shift hours.
Yes, you know, even
And-
put
and
a
that
coffee
does not
machine.
help.
Put a coffee machine somewhere so nurses can actually go and put up their feet and have their coffee and relax. Because going from 7 to 3, 3 to 10, 10 to 7, it can take a toll on you sometimes, right? So sometimes we just need to give back to them.
Learn
Yes.
to ask for help as well. That is important.
Yes, yes.
I think if you know you need help, if you feel
Yes.
that you need help,
You
you
ask.
ask for the help.
You're
Because
right.
this COVID, as you spoke about, and I look at the toll that it took on nurses. Sometimes you turn the TV on and you had nurses dying, coming
Yes.
down, you know,
Yes.
being sick.
Yes.
You know, the long hours that
The
they have
long
to be at
hours.
work and so on, they're stressed out.
And they're right there at the
Their
bedside
psychological
with the patients.
health,
Yes.
you know, you know,
Right.
became, you know, is an issue.
Right.
Became an issue.
Yes.
And so on.
So nurses probably going through mental stress. And persons are not identifying, treating, and reassessing. Yes.
Okay, we're going to continue the discussion, but we are going to go to the phone lines. Maybe some nurses want to call in. The numbers to call are 466-2666. That is 466-2666, 662-8674, 662-8674, 767-4765, and 1239-645-4500. We welcome your calls. Right. So let's look at the nursing as it is right now, which we are looking at in the Federation, how the education for nurses help to prepare them actually for the world of work in nursing. We are speaking about some of the challenges that nurses face. Let's talk a little bit about the contemporary structure of nursing education.
So, as Dr. Bradshaw alluded to with the history, we've moved away from being trained by doctors, where we have our autonomous profession. Nurses are governed by nurses, and the profession is governed by nurses. So, in order to matriculate for the profession of nursing, you must have the, as I stated before, for those just joining us, 5 CXC or GCE, that's Caribbean Examination Council or General Certificate Examination, 5 subjects with passes in 1, 2, or 3. English language, mathematics, human and social biology, or straight biology are mandatory. And the passes for these are 2, no less than 2 for these.
1, 2, 3.
They cannot come in with more than 2 subjects at level 3 passes.
Right.
Right.
So you cannot enter the program with more than 3 courses, 3 subjects in with 3 passes in a 3, right?
No more than 2 subjects
2 subjects with
with
3.
level 3 passes. No
Okay.
more than 2 subjects.
Yes. And so you must have English language, mathematics, and biology. The other 2 can be agricultural science, geography, Caribbean history, social studies, food and nutrition, principles of account, principles of business, information technology. And in the next 5 years, chemistry and physics will be mandatory.
Right. Nowadays, there is in education in general, there is a focus being placed on technology. Because
Yes.
that is actually important.
Yes.
Like when I did teacher training, that was an important component
Yes, health
of
informatics.
the program.
Health informatics is very, very important, and it is actually one of the foundation courses that the student nurses learn in first year of nursing school. I believe that the JNF is implementing a hospital administrative system where they are moving to paperless system. And there's also the development of standardized nursing language, which seeks to measure, and it goes back to the nurse being recognized for the work that they do, because as it stands now, the nurse documents the care in a paper, a chart that is paper-based. And the nurse is so busy that she starts her shift at 7 a.m. and between 7 a.m. and when her shift ends at 3 p.m., she may do 1 documentation. If an auditor looks at this docket, the auditor is not there when you're providing the care and is not there to see that you would have not documented because you were so busy. The auditor is going to see 1 line of care: patient fed, patient hygienic needs met, care continues. And they're going to say, well, this nurse didn't do anything. This nurse does not deserve a raise of pay. So the information system provides ease of documentation, it provides better patient care, and it also helps to develop a standardized nursing language. When I tick vital sign on the computer, it knows that vital signs offer temperature, pulse, blood pressure, respiration, and all these skills take at least 15 minutes out of my time. So you can quantify the care that you give. So information technology is very important.
Right. Now, what about ethical issues in nursing? Because I think that is important. Those ethical issues, confidentiality, nurses don't have your business on the street,
Oh, Lord.
and all of that sort of a thing. That is a biggie.
Yep.
So, let's speak a little bit in terms of, what are some of those ethical standards
Yes.
that nurses actually should have? I mean, all people in healthcare, but today our focus is on nurses.
What, Julie?
In our program, they are taught ethics, and is emphasized on the ethical principles of autonomy, beneficence, non-maleficence, and all of this, and also highlight justice and fairness and confidentiality. So it also it is reinforced in all other courses that they do. So throughout the program, so that our program at the BSN level is 4 years, so they would have done it as a foundation course, and for all the program, the 2nd year, 3rd year, this is spread, integrated throughout the program. So they know. They have been taught, and we evaluate them using this, because when we go to the clinical area and we observe them and we assess them, we also assess that part of it in terms of whether they are confidential, whether they respect the person's autonomy, they are caring, not only provide the skill, not only the skill, but also the attitude. We also evaluate their behavior. So most times with people, if they've been assessed, they do what they're supposed to do. They keep in line. It's when they go out there and they don't have that control or they have a little more freedom, they tend to deviate from what they're taught. But they know how to behave, they were taught, and it's just a matter of practicing it all the time, consistently.
So the implementation.
Yes.
That is always an issue because people are taught in a classroom,
Yes.
but yet the classroom is like the ideal world. And so you go out now into the real world.
To apply it.
And it has to be applied. And sometimes you meet certain situations where you find the application extremely difficult to apply perhaps what you have learned in the classroom. Because I teach ethics. I mean, it's an area where you look at morality, bioethics and genetic engineering and ethical issues in all of that, transplantation, and other moral issues, promiscuity and all these, abortion and all these kinds of things. What are the moral issues surrounding those things? But then there's also something called situation ethics. Right? And so therefore sometimes depending on the situation that you encounter, you have to use some different decision-making skills in those sort of situations.
Yes. They are taught these things, decision-making, how to make decision, problem-solving, processes, critical thinking, and nursing, we have a tool we call the nursing process, which is similar to decision-making or problem-solving process, where you assess the situation, you come up with a conclusion, you implement interventions, and then you evaluate. We also teach them about resolving ethical dilemmas. So the process of dealing with ethical dilemmas. So then we teach them that, and as we say, it's application. Because sometimes, as this classroom is the ideal. Though we try to use simulation to let them know that you won't always get the ideal. But when you reach reality, when you encounter the reality, it's sometimes very different from what you would.
Yes. But it's important that they have those critical thinking skills.
Mr. Williams, if I may, also closely linked, because we usually pair both of them with ethics, is law. So it's usually ethics, the legal and ethical aspects of nursing. So we teach the importance of maintaining autonomy and confidentiality, because there's a legal implication when you do not. Right? So we teach the legal aspects of nursing also.
Yeah, I would like to just interject with the contemporary structure of nursing education as it is right now. My vision for the department, Health Sciences at the college, was to ensure that we start online teaching, because we are small staff. And if we want to do more, we would have to develop the online platform so that our reach becomes more lengthy. And it so happened that my staff was trained, and I also was involved in the training, because I still teach. We were trained just before COVID actually hit the shores. So when COVID hit the shores, our department, our division was able to transition very smoothly across to the online platform. And we have kept the online teaching for our students, because right now, the students got that, what we must call the introduction to online teaching, online testing, and right now, because of COVID-19, you will know the students are doing all exams online. So they have no problem connecting the dots when they get to the online system. Also, we had the privilege when we had that last lockdown, before we had the elderly care program, the course, and boom, they came the lockdown, and we had to transition online. We didn't drop the course, we went straight online. So the students also transitioned smoothly onto the online platform. And also there they can go in, read the assignments, do the quizzes, look at videos, and it gives them more autonomy, because here's where they have the flexibility. And they can read over the same thing 100 times. They can look at the prepared lectures, the recorded lectures, 100 times. Because you can't ask the lecturer one question 100 times. But you can play it, you can stop it, you can go, you can make a note, etc. So it's very beneficial. Right now, we are offering the emergency medical responder course to the police. The theory is online. 12 weeks course, the theory is online. They're coming face to face for the practical. And I am happy it's like that because how many police can come to us? And we are training 40 of them right now. 40 of them cannot come to the classroom at the same time. So the contemporary structure of nursing education has changed. We no longer need the brick and mortar. We can actually, if a hurricane comes, God forbid, once the electricity is still available, we can transition to the online platform.
So COVID has brought about
Yes.
some of that and so on.
Of
yes.
course.
We have to look at different ways in terms of teaching. Using the
Teaching
technology.
yes. And our students do not really have to come to the lab face to face. We have what you call shadow health. And that is an online clinical simulation lab. Right. And it's 3D. So the students actually feel as if they're actually dealing with real patients. And that is where we are going. I mean, that is where we are. We just need to see if we can introduce more programs, you know, and of course we have in the pipeline, the curriculum is finished for the BSN program for the post-RN, for those staff nurses in hospital or community who want to complete their BSN program, and it's going to be exclusively online. Again, flexibility is offered.
Okay, Dr. Bradshaw, we are talking about appreciation and recognition for nurses. Are you aware of anything during this week to recognize, to appreciate the work that nurses do? Well, are you aware of anything, any program, anything at all? Are you aware of anything at the hospital, the Ministry of Health? I know we don't have anybody here on the panel, but if you're aware, you can let us know.
Well, yesterday we had a research conference at the college, and of course the director and assistant director of nursing institution was there, and she informed me that they're having a luncheon on Thursday. In our department at the college, we are having our luncheon on Friday. So we are going to be recognizing ourselves.
Okay.
And who knows, they might get a token, you know?
Well, that is good. It is, you know, the...
Yes, because you have to look after yourself
yes,
sometimes.
yes. Well, that is what we are saying, self-care. Self-care. Self-care in the nursing profession is important.
Right. But I also want to say, back to the rewards. When I was a student nurse, and our sister tutors at that time would tell us, nursing is a thankless job. But what is your reward? Your reward is to see that the gentleman that came in and could not walk. Your reward for the patient who walked in on the maternity unit in pain, getting ready to deliver. Your reward is a peaceful spirit, knowing that you had a hand in helping that person to return to that state of health where they were. Your reward is seeing the birth of a new life. And that is something that a lot of people have not yet experienced.
Yeah.
And trust me, even if the woman on the bed doesn't say thank you, I felt good just to be there to see this miracle of life happen over and over again. And that is our reward.
Yeah, yes, you're so correct, and
Yes.
I don't think anybody's disputing that. But I think sometimes you want a hug too.
Yes,
we're
I
all
understand
human.
that,
You
you know.
feel for a hug, and
I understand that.
you know, and you want a shoulder to cry on.
Yes, I understand that.
And you would like a nice bouquet of flowers and so on. You don't wait until the person is dead.
Yes, I understand
To give it
that.
to them.
Yes, I understand that. But I am saying, when all
I
these
know.
things are not
You have to
available.
feel some self-satisfaction
Of course, and
in
that's why
terms
you're
of
there.
what you do.
That is why you're there.
That is why you are there.
That
The
is why you're
satisfaction
there.
is in the fact that you are
Yes.
serving.
You're serving.
And you're helping people.
Because nursing is not a job. It's human service to human.
It's a
human
profession.
beings. It's a profession.
It's
It's
we
not a
used to
job.
distinguish once ago between
Yes.
what is a profession and what is a vocation.
Well,
And
nursing is a
sometimes-
profession because it's built on the foundation of research.
Yes.
It's a discipline
Right.
built on the foundation of research.
But then we used to make the distinction that a vocation come from, vocare, the Latin word means
Right.
to call. It's a calling.
It's a calling.
It's a calling that some
Right.
people receive. Some people
Yes.
say, boy, since I was a little, boy or a little girl, I wanted to be a nurse.
Right.
This is my calling.
Calling, yes.
You
So
know,
it's a
this,
service.
this is basically what makes me happy. This is what makes me feel fulfilled.
Right.
Right? And as Julie said, all the money in the world.
Right.
You
So it
know.
goes back to your reward.
Yes.
Right,
I'm
you
not
can't-
doing it for all the money in the
Right,
world.
you can't,
Even if
right.
even if there was not a lot of money in it,
You still go.
that is who I am.
Yes.
That is what I want to do. That is what makes me actually happy.
Right.
Yes.
Definitely.
But nowadays, what you find happening, that's why I try to make a distinction between the calling and the profession, is that you have people now that are choosing professions based on how much money they can make.
Exactly.
It is not so much the service,
Yes.
It is how much money can I make. And sometimes they get into these professions where they think they're going to make millions of dollars and they're making money and so on, but they are not happy
Right.
because the fulfillment and who they are is not there.
It's not there. And so whatever you put out, the persons who are receiving in turn will not be happy with you.
That is correct.
Yes.
Right, so what is the future of nursing education here in St. Kitts and Nevis?
Okay. As I said, we have introduced the online. So we're going to
Yeah.
continue it. We're going to improve upon that. However, we would want to significantly increase the number of entrants for the BSN program. Of course, throughout the years, we have had only maybe the past 2 years, 5 and 6 persons coming in for first year. But I am happy that the outlook for the academic year coming up 22-23, to date we have 19 applicants. 8 have already received UE approval letters. 2 are qualified on paper and awaiting UE offer letters, and 9 are awaiting the outcome of their CXC examination that they would sit between May and June this year. We also want to introduce forums for the second farmers in high schools at the point where they select their subjects for the career in nursing. It is important to collaborate with the guidance counselors and the parents, of course, to begin the process in order to help the students with an interest in nursing to select those subjects that will help them to matriculate into the areas of interest that is nursing. And one of the main subjects that continues to be a thorn in the side of many students is passing mathematics. Right? So we are hopeful that once we introduce these forums, that with the early engagement, the students would be able to bridge those gaps early. And then, of course, in order to teach the BSN program at the college, all faculty must be trained at the master's level. However, I would like to see an increase in the capacity of nurse educators at the doctoral level. I would also like to see more research being done in nursing in St. Kitts and Nevis, because research is a critical element that guides the decision-making process in healthcare. And so thereby we need to invest. The theme for the International Nurses Week has that concept in there, invest in nursing. And we can only invest in nursing and redound to quality healthcare if we start to do research. We want to continue with the advancement of online teaching learning for short courses. Because as I said before, most of our courses right now for short courses are online, and persons will come in face-to-face for the practical session. And of course, persons who are listening and who are interested in enrolling in the BSN program and also the nursing assistant program, the registration period is already open, and it closes on July 31st at the college. Of course, if you would want to enroll in the BSN program, then I have an open door system My phone number is 662-9269, and most persons, they do call or they would email me with their interest. And because you have to go through what we call an interviewing process, and that too takes time. And also because one might say July 31st is far, but if you are a high school student and currently waiting to write your CXC subjects, I want you to look at those subjects that you are going to write: mathematics, English language, biology, another subject that will matriculate you. Don't wait until you have received your CXC results to want to apply for the program, because you may have already closed the application period, which is July 31st. So you can still come in and apply online to the UE platform. Of course, I would want to meet with you first, and that is where we start our student advisement, so that we together we can determine whether this is the right fix for you. Because we have had students in the past, and I said to them, don't you want to do medicine because you know you qualify? Because I don't want them to feel as if, you know. So we give them all the tips, and so before the closure of the application period, don't wait until you have done the CXC and now come and say, these are my passes, because the door soon closes. Thank you.
Good. So we are out of time. Is there anything just you?
Let me just add, in terms of the outlook, is to offer the midwifery program at the bachelor's level.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes. Upgrade it. Yes.
Upgrade it to
Upgrade
the
it
bachelor's midwifery.
Yes.
Anything, Kadian, before we go?
I would agree
30 seconds.
in the nursing needs more research. I'm passionate about research, as are my fellow colleagues. We're all researchers. Do not shy away from research. It is the base of our profession. It guides our profession. And think about a topic that you would want to explore and do so.
Well, I want to thank all of you, and I want to wish you as well a happy Nurses Day.
Thank you.
When it comes tomorrow, and all of the nurses in the Federation. And thank you so much for the work, the important work that you continue to do in caring and, you know, serving and caring for people. And happy International Nurses Day to all of you. So Dr. Rondalyn Bradshaw, the Dean of the Division of Health at Health Sciences at CFBC, Miss Julie Blaze, lecturer at CFBC in the Division of Health Sciences, and Miss Kadian Henry, lecturer in the Division of Health Sciences. Thank you very much for taking time and coming and sharing with us today. It is really appreciated.
Thank you so much for having us, and we do hope to return soon.
Okay, good. Right. So thank you to all of you who listened to our program today. Thank you very much for being with us. Next week, we will be back with another edition of Working for You. Until then, take care. I am Les Roy Williams.
There you have it, folks, another edition of Working for You here on WINNMedia Family 98.9. We now head back to our regular programming.
We're different. We're